an important, though relatively short-lived and small victory. A terrible amendment was floated for 1405-880, which is the bill dealing with biosolids. And the amendment essentially would have gutted the ability of localities to regulate urban turf fertilizer. We joined together with the League of Cities, the Association of Counties, Audubon, the core environmental folks, and we were able to talk that down. And Representative Tuck, who is the chair of the House Ag and Environment Appropriations Sub, she did not want that amendment on her bill. So we think that we have stopped that, but from now until sine die, I will be watching every amendment that gets filed, which is what I usually do at the end of session, is just to watch everything that gets filed to make sure that that doesn't come up, and if it does, to raise the red flag and blow the warning horns. So we think that we've knocked that down. There is a bill that does have some good stuff in it, originally by Representative Steele, a new representative, on water. And some of the stuff that it does actually addresses some of the needed changes in 403.067. That's the section of law that deals with basin management action plans, total maximum daily loads. If you're familiar with that stuff, it's the process that is in the Clean Water Act that you're supposed to follow to identify impaired water bodies and create a plan to remediate them. There is some good stuff in 1367 and 1632, but there's also sprawl language in the original bill because it calls for any collection of 50 residential lots, or either with or without houses at this point, to hook up to sewer, to septic, instead of having on-site wastewater treatment plant, septic tank systems to hook up to sewers that have wastewater, that are connected to wastewater treatment plants. And we see that, Sierra sees that as an invitation to sprawl, because there are three things that you do to guarantee sprawl. One is you put in a road on virgin land. The next thing you do is you provide water. And the last thing you do, or maybe the second thing you do, is to provide sewer. And if you do that, then you're just asking for development where perhaps it shouldn't be. So that was one of the reasons that we didn't get heavily engaged with that bill to begin with. But it, as I say, it did have some good stuff dealing with 403.067. As we are approaching the end, one of the things that happens is that all kinds of amendments get tacked onto things, and one of the main amendments that has been tacked on to 1632, and I expect to see it on 1379, is an amendment that would streamline permitting for coastal areas. So that would include high hazard coastal areas, anything where they shouldn't be putting up development, and where they should be seriously considering retreating from having development because it's already been knocked down by 1, 2, or 3 hurricanes. You know, sooner or later you're supposed to wake up and smell the coffee. Well, they're not doing that because there's money to be made with oceanfront property or Gulffront property. So that's the amendment that's been tucked into the very beginning of those bills. So things progress apace along those lines. We can be certain that the legislature is going to tout 106, SB 106, the Wildlife Corridor Bill, as a great environmental achievement. If you've ever read the text of 259.1055, which is the Wildlife Corridor Statute, you will find that everything that's in there, there's nothing really terrible in there by any, well, there's not much that's terrible in there. But basically, it is all aspirational. There are no teeth. If you look at the verbs for what DEP is supposed to do, it's encourage, 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 consider. There's nothing about achieving anything that's going to benefit the environment. So the Wildlife Corridor Bill, if you look at it, you find it's really a greenways and trails bill. Not a bad program, but it's about building a road or a series of roads or access paths that are supposed to be non-motorized, but it's for bikes and for pedestrians. This is not a bad thing per se, but do we want to be spending our money on that, or should we be spending money on actually acquiring important environmental land? The LATF continues to be rated by the legislature. We have been in a lawsuit for, I think, about 9 years at this point. We have sued the legislature, and that case continues. Our position is that the documentary stamps, the documentary stamp tax, 33% of that is supposed to go into the Land Acquisition Trust Fund, and it's supposed to be used to acquire, restore, manage, and improve conservation and recreation lands. That's all it's supposed to be used for. That's what it says in the Constitution, and they keep using it for water supply, information technology, vehicles, this, that, and the other thing. And we should be spending about $1.2 billion in this fiscal year on land acquisition, restoration, management, and improvement. And we're not. The governor has chosen the Everglades as his environmental cred area. And he's done a really good job in terms of both raising money and raising public awareness of what he's done for the Everglades. There's a lot of money there. A lot of the money has been put into the EAA reservoir, which we don't believe is ever going to work. It's creating a huge, deep swimming pool that is way too deep to clean the water and release it to go south so that it could rehydrate the Everglades and eventually get down to Florida Bay, where we're dealing with salination issues. So it's not particularly uplifting, but that's kind of the picture. We really need a change, and the legislature needs to know that people out there in the districts are fed up. So I'm glad you're here, and I'll take any questions if you have them.